Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
And what is up, you guys? Welcome to the stream. It feels like it's been forever, and it kind of has been. Obviously, the Mets with a couple of West Coast games for the past couple of days. I was, of course, out of town, as you guys know, but I am happy to be back here in my real true studio, so happy to be here. Not so happy with how the Mets looked over this 3-game series with San Diego as they are swept by the Padres, and today the cherry on top, just an absolutely lifeless performance from the Mets bats. They get just 3 hits in this game. They make Yu Darvish look like Yu Darvish from 2013. Who would have guessed that coming into today with an ERA above 9, having made only 5 starts on the year, but Yu Darvish absolutely is the Mets' daddy. He has been pretty much his entire Major League career. So not super shocked there, but it doesn't make it any less frustrating as the Mets give up 3 games to the Padres in the standings after starting this West Coast road trip off on such a great foot by sweeping San Francisco. If you could reverse it where the Mets got swept by San Francisco and then swept San Diego, that probably would have been a better outcome than this. Of course, with the Padres in the 3rd wild card spot, and the Mets now in a virtual tie with the Phillies for first place in the National League East. They should be in action tonight again against Chicago. So they actually are playing right now, and they are absolutely, it was just 2-1, I swear to God, and now it's 2-2. So the White Sox just tied that game. It's 2-2 in the 4th inning. So chance that by the end of tonight, the Mets are back in 2nd place, trailing the Phillies by a half a game. But guys, what is up? I am Tony Metro. We have a lot to talk about today. The Mets making a big trade to improve their bullpen in the middle of this game, pretty much right before first pitch, or maybe just soon thereafter, as they have acquired right-handed reliever Tyler Rogers from the San Francisco Giants. We're going to talk about that as well. But if you're new to the channel, be sure to leave this video a like. Really appreciate it. It goes a long way toward helping out the channel. And be sure to subscribe for daily Mets content, post-game recap after every single Mets game, other than some of the West Coast games like we had this week. Obviously, not a whole lot of people up and wanting to recap an ugly Mets loss like we have seen here against the Padres over the last 2 nights. But appreciate you guys all being here. Ghost of Maidens Park, what is up, man? Tony, I don't see this team beating a healthy Dodgers team when their rotation is healthy. Well, that is a big if, though. Will the Dodgers rotation ever get fully healthy? I mean, like, we have our own issues with injuries. Every team does. But, you know, the Dodgers came into this season on paper having one of the most ridiculous rotations, but they haven't proven to be healthy at all this year. I mean, Tyler Glasnow has started to make his way back a little bit. Now we're starting to see Shohei Ohtani pitch for them as well, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, Roki Sasaki, haven't even heard a thing about him. Obviously, Yamamoto has been really good for the Dodgers, but look, fully healthy Dodgers, Mets, it's almost impossible to say the Mets are a better team, but it's really all about who's playing hot come the playoffs, and that's who usually takes home the World Series in the end. But the way the Mets played this weekend, or this week rather, against San Diego just will not win you many games, and will not win you playoff games against a team like the Padres or a team like the Dodgers. So let's get into it. Obviously, Clay Holmes was on the mound today, and it was pretty much a lot of what we've seen from Clay Holmes lately. Par for the course, you know, just giving up a ton of base hits and a lot of issues with 2 outs. So in the 2nd inning, 2 outs, nobody on. He ends up giving up a single, a walk, another walk, and the bases are all of a sudden loaded for Manny Machado, who gets a 2-run single into left field. The very next inning, error from Francisco Lindor opens the door for the Padres, and then it was Sheets hitting a 2-run homer off Clay Holmes. Obviously, none of those runs are earned for him, but it all totals up to a 4-0 lead for the Padres, and they really didn't need anything else from there because the Mets bats were just absolutely lifeless against Darvish. Like I said in the beginning, Darvish has historically pitched so well against the Mets throughout his Major League career ever since coming over from Japan. We have never really touched him, whether he was with the Cubs, whether he was with the Rangers, the Padres, the Dodgers. It doesn't seem to matter. Yu Darvish just has the Mets number. And breaking news from Danny Caps in the chat, Phillies got Johan Duran. Wow. Okay, so that is big news for sure. He is obviously one of the top relievers available right now on the market. and the Phillies striking and basically countering to the Mets acquiring Tyler Rogers as Duran is heading to Philadelphia, according to Danny Caps here. Let me double check on Twitter here and confirm that and see what the trade is. But man, this just kind of feels like how it always goes, like with the Mets. Like the Mets, yeah, I like Tyler Rogers. That's a really nice addition. He has really good numbers, and I'll still recap a little bit of this game and my frustration from this series, but it feels like we got to talk about this trade now that the Phillies just made, acquiring Johan Duran from the Twins, one of the most electric closers. According to Jeff Passan, and I'll just share my screen over here with you guys so you could see everything here. Nope, not that. There we go. So according to Jeff Passan, the Philadelphia Phillies are finalizing a deal to acquire closer Johan Duran from the Twins for 2 top prospects. Okay, so biggest deal at the deadline, no doubt about it, as Jeff Passan says right here. So a Passan bomb. I mean, this just always feels like how it goes for the Mets at the deadline. I'm sorry. Like, I like Tyler Rogers. I do. Don't love the trade that the Mets just gave for him, giving up Drew Gilbert, Blake Tidwell, and Jose Butzel. We will break that down, but let me just vent for a second. Of course, the Phillies, our chief competition for the National League East, go out and just make a huge trade for Duran, and I'm really interested to see who the top 2 prospects are that they are trading back to the Minnesota Twins to acquire Duran, but it always just seems to go this way, man. The Phillies are so aggressive every deadline, and I know it hasn't materialized into a World Series for them to this point, but man, I really would have liked to see Duran, or at the very least not let him go to the Phillies. So this is really, really frustrating. Let's see, Jeff has it now here. It is right-hander Mick Abel, who we saw in the Phillies rotation earlier this year, and catcher Eduardo Tate. I have not heard of Tate before, but they are the 2 players that are going to be heading out to Minnesota as the Phillies have acquired Johan Duran, one of the top closers in baseball. So let's actually take a look at his numbers really quick and see what he has done, because now this is the guy that is going to be closing out games for the Phillies against the Mets here down the stretch, as they are now in a virtual tie for first place after the Mets are swept out of San Diego here with a just gutless performance. It looked like they already had 1 foot on the plane heading back to the East Coast today, as they are just embarrassed and totally shredded apart by Yu Darvish. So Duran this year, 2.01 ERA, 16 saves in 49 and a third innings pitched. This is coming after last year, where he was, if they have saves for opportunities, he was 23 for 25 in save opportunities last year and had a 3.64 ERA. So he's having probably the best season of his career if you don't count his rookie season in 2022, which actually was a full season. So I guess you got to say that was probably his best year for Duran. But the Phillies just got a whole lot better. The Mets do too, of course, with the trade for Tyler Rogers, which I'm happy about. So let's actually break that down a little bit as well. I don't want to talk too much Phillies here, but that is the breaking news. The Phillies have acquired Johan Duran to put into the back of their bullpen. Of course, we know they lost Jose Alvarado for the season with the PED suspension. He is eligible to come back and pitch the remainder of whatever's left in the regular season after that suspension is completed, but he is not postseason eligible. So the Phillies, like the Mets, are looking to improve their bullpen, and they did it in a massive way today. Let's go to the chat really quick. Danny Caps, Twins got Eduardo Tate and Mick Abel. Yup, he's the one pitcher I wanted. Stefan says, hey guys, bummer tonight, gonna sleep now. Hey Stefan, appreciate it. Stefan all the way from Amsterdam. That's a true Mets fan right there. Daniel Caps, one of the reasons why I wanted Duran was just in case Diaz leaves at the end of the season. Absolutely. So that is something that we have talked about a lot here with Edwin Diaz having his opt-out after this season. It is very possible that he decides to go explore the market, or he just asks for something that is well beyond what the Mets are comfortable giving to him in a possible contract extension. So getting a reliever that has closer experience, one that is as good as Johan Duran, would have been really nice, because all of a sudden it gives the Mets a little bit of leverage in potential negotiations with Edwin Diaz should he choose to opt out after this year, which with having how he has pitched so far this season, it appears that is going to be the case. But unfortunately, Johan Duran is heading to the Phillies, and now we have to hate him. So I hate you, Johan Duran. I hope you're horrible. That's all I have to say. But the Mets do acquire Tyler Rogers, so let's talk about it a little bit. Look, honestly, guys, there's really not a whole lot to talk about from this Mets game today. We know they just got absolutely murked by Yu Darvish. 3 hits in this game. Clay Holmes with his typical, Tons of runners on base. He gives up 8 hits in this game. Only 2 of the runs are earned because of the error from Francisco Lindor, but just a really ugly game and a really frustrating series because on Friday, you hit a grand slam with Mark Vientos. You have a 5-1 lead. Frankie Montas blows up. Huascar Brazoban pours more gasoline on the fire that he started. All of a sudden, it's 6-5. You even get the game-tying homer from Ronnie Mauricio to tie it in the 9th inning. And then, of course, the walk-off off of Gregory Soto. Yesterday, the Mets just couldn't put any good at-bats together against Bergert. I mean, come on. Seriously, that guy, we got shut down by Bergert yesterday. Like, whatever. But winning Monday's game was so important to me because at the very least you say, all right, well, we didn't get swept, right? And you would have had an 8-game winning streak. And I just felt after they lost that game that it was going to be a slog the rest of the way, that it was going to be a bad game yesterday. And I knew when Yu Darvish was taking the mound today with his 9 earned runs or his 9 ERA on the season and 5 starts, he was going to dominate the Mets. And that's exactly what he did. So just an infuriating series. I mean, wipes away all the good voodoo, good mojo coming off a sweep of the Giants as the Padres just gained 3 games on the Mets, and now they are knocked down to a tie with the Phillies for first place in the National League East. But let's talk about this trade for Tyler Rogers because he has been an excellent reliever for a number of years now. He has spent his entire career with San Francisco. He is the submariner. We saw him this past weekend. We've seen him in the past. He is very effective. He has an ERA of about 1.80 on the season. As you look at John Heyman's ugly mug there, 1.80 earned run average so far this year and a career ERA of 2.79. Gets lefties out as well as he does righties. One of the great things about what Rogers does is he's equally as effective against both sides, but also doesn't walk a whole lot of guys. That has been such a problem for pretty much anybody in the Mets bullpen this year. So really nice to see the Mets going all in, quote unquote, to get Rogers. But when this report first came out that the Mets were acquiring Tyler Rogers, I was really happy, but I was waiting to see what is the return going back to San Francisco. I was not going to make any of my videos or TikToks or any of the stuff here on YouTube without first knowing what the Mets were sending back. And I'm sorry, but never in my wildest dreams did I think that the Mets would be sending the package that they just sent to San Francisco. And that is, of course, Drew Gilbert, Blade Tidwell, and Jose Butto heading back to the Giants for the Mets to acquire Rogers. So look, Rogers is going to help this Mets team tremendously down the stretch. If he continues to pitch the way that he has for San Francisco this year, the way that he has pitched throughout pretty much his entire career since he debuted, I believe it was 2019, 2018, somewhere around there, he is going to make this Mets bullpen much better. I just did not expect, number one, Drew Gilbert to even be in this trade, period. But then I see it's also Blade Tidwell and it's also Jose Butto. And I was like, hold on a second. I don't know how I feel about this trade anymore. And you could see it on the video. I posted a short here on YouTube. I also posted it on TikTok. I don't know how I feel about this trade. And I was pretty frustrated there for the first maybe 20 minutes while thinking about it, while going through it all. So real quick, let's take a look at Drew Gilbert and where he was ranking in the Mets system and his numbers so far this year. Of course, we know the Mets acquired him when they sent Justin Verlander back to Houston. The Mets eating most of that contract to, quote unquote, get better prospect return. Drew Gilbert and Ryan Clifford were the 2 guys that came over in that trade. Now, we know that it was Billy Epler that executed that trade the season before David Stearns took over as president of baseball operations. And if you guys have been watching my channel for a while, then you know I have said I think that Stearns has had a year and a half now to evaluate all the different prospects in the system who have been acquired from 4 different general managers, from Jared Porter to Zach Scott to Billy Epler, and before that, Brody Van Wagenen, and he is going to make some moves. He is going to know who he believes is now a part of the future of this organization and who is not. So Drew Gilbert was among the Mets' top 10 prospects in the system, depending on what outlet you were looking at, but really has turned it on lately. He's got a 252 average so far this year, 354 on base percentage, and has bumped that OPS up to 804. He has 14 home runs so far this year and had been pretty hot lately. So let's go into his game logs really quick and show you some of the things that he's been doing recently Had a, where is it all? Here we go. Had a 2 home run game on July 25th. And other than that, it's just been kind of putting up some pretty good days where a couple hits here and there, apple a day keeps the doctor away. And it looked like he was rounding into form. And it was even bandied about among a lot of Mets fans and a bunch of media members saying, hey, the Mets need a solution in center field this year. They're not getting any production out of Tyrone Taylor there. Maybe Drew Gilbert is the guy that gets that call. He's 24 years old. He's in AAA. Maybe it's time to give Drew Gilbert a shot as the future center fielder for this team. And instead, the Mets are sending him away in this trade. So right off the bat, I was like, wow, okay, more expensive than I initially would have thought for a 34-year-old right-handed reliever that is a rental. That's right. Rogers is a free agent after this year. So I was a little shocked that it, number one, took Drew Gilbert. Then we talk about Blade Tidwell. Now, I've said it before. I don't think Blade Tidwell is going to be anything more than a middle relief pitcher in the big leagues. I've seen him pitch now. I've watched his minor league games. I've seen his numbers. I think Tidwell could carve out a nice little career in the big leagues, but I don't believe he's going to be an effective starter, and I don't believe he's really going to be a dominant back end arm either. So Tidwell really does not hurt me in this one. And then, of course, Jose Butto, who I said at the beginning of the season in my Mets preseason predictions, I predicted would become the most effective reliever in this bullpen outside of Edwin Diaz. The way he pitched last year prior to the postseason, his ability to pitch in basically any situation, long relief with guys on base, pretty much any inning throughout a game, that's who Jose Butto was last year. But it has not been a good season for him. He has that injured list stint with the mystery illness that we never heard about again, and for the most part really didn't look so good so far here in the second half. Another blow-up inning yesterday. But when you add it along with Gilbert and Tidwell, I was frustrated that Butto was also going back. Felt like you were taking away from something that is already kind of a weakness for this team with the way that the bullpen has been pitching. And then I had a little bit of time to think about it. And I decided, you know what? The Mets are going all in for a World Series. And it's basically an evaluation period that has come to an end here for David Stearns. And he decided that these were 3 guys that are not a long-term part of their future. Obviously, Tyler Rogers is not either, him being a free agent at the end of the year, just being a rental. But he is going to give this 2025 team a shot to win, and I don't believe he mortgaged the future whatsoever. Everything we have heard from other media members, such as Anthony Zagomo, such as Steve Gelbs, have said there is no chance, or at least a very minimal one, that this could turn into a Pete Crow Armstrong for Javi Baez type of trade. Drew Gilbert was viewed as the kind of guy, a 4th outfielder, a guy that could have a MLB career, but it's going to be tough for him to truly become a consistent everyday starter at the big league level. We know what Butto has been, an up and down rocky guy who started as a starting pitcher and has been converted to a reliever with mixed results. He has also had a lot of injuries mixed in there as well. And then there's Blade Tidwell, who I don't think ever gave us more than 4 innings in any of the 2 or 3 starts that he made this year. He pitched in relief once or twice. Again, varying results. And so after a little bit of time to sit on it, I felt much better. And here's an exact reason why. There's a good chance the Mets win on Monday if Tyler Rogers was on this roster before then. There's a good chance the Mets don't blow a 5-1 lead if you have Tyler Rogers. You now have Gregory Soto in this bullpen. You now have Brooks Raley in this bullpen, who has looked really sharp since returning from his Tommy John rehab. And all of a sudden, this looks like a very, very different bullpen. So I am actually happy with this trade as I've had a little bit of time to think about it, mull it over. I am definitely feeling a little more optimistic and less frustrated by it when I saw that initial package. Like I said, that was a frustrating loss on Monday when you have a 5-1 lead right after Mark Vientos hits a home run. In the very next half inning, the Padres come out. They put 6 up on the board. Part of that because of Frankie Montas and then, of course, Huascar Brazoban. But then you have Gregory Soto pitching there in the 9th inning, and he puts the 2 first runners aboard. Has an throwing error trying to get the lead runner at second. Getting a guy like Tyler Rogers just deepened this bullpen, and there's a good chance the Mets don't blow a 5-1 lead like they did on Monday night. And we're not talking about having just got swept out of San Diego and finishing this 6-game road stand with a 3-game losing streak. So I am actually very pleased with the trade for Tyler Rogers, as I've had a little bit more time to think about it. I think this bullpen has gotten much stronger here in the last couple of days or last week, including the trade for Gregory Soto, the re-addition, if you will, of Brooks Raley and how he has pitched lately, and then, of course, now bringing in Rogers as well. And it does not sound like the Mets are done at the trade deadline. They are still rumored to be interested in another relief arm, and we have also heard that they are looking to finally fill the center field position as well. So Luis Robert is someone that we have heard a lot about. I made a video about him earlier today. You guys could check that out after this stream. I am more open to the idea of Luis Robert, especially when I heard what the trade package would be centered around, and that is Luis Angel Acuna. It's probably going to cost more than just Luis Angel Acuna, but I'm willing to take that shot on Luis Robert Jr. finally panning out and turning into that five-tool kind of player that they had hopes for him to be one day. Let me go to the chat here, guys. What is up? Appreciate y'all tuning in. If you guys are new, be sure to subscribe. Be sure to leave this video a like. Really appreciate it. Daily Mets content, post-game recap after every single Mets game. Madeline Schmidt, what's up? Awful disgrace. It was a terrible week. It was a terrible 3-game set. You know what, man? The Padres are an annoying ass team, man. The Padres just, I don't know what it is. Some teams just have your number, and it seems like the Padres have had the Mets number for pretty much like the last 7-8 years, ever since this little run that they've been on with Manny Machado and whenever Fernando Tatis debuted for them. The Padres just seemingly have the Mets number for whatever reason. I don't like that team. They are a cocky bunch. They are just bouncing around. They were playing out of their freaking minds this whole 3-game set against the Mets. Diving plays from the dude at second base who has one of the worst defensive metrics in all of baseball, but not against the Mets. No, he'll be just making diving plays all over the place. And then Yu Darvish, of course, as I've touched on. ERA above 9 in just 5 starts this year, but against the Mets today, 7 innings of shutout ball with 7 punchies. Like, wow, shocker. Screw the Padres. Hope they go on a 20-game losing streak. Whatever. We'll see if they even make the playoffs. I can't stand them. Danny Caps, what's up, man? And then he says, in my opinion, Mets play better when they're in second place, but that's just me. I mean, maybe it's like they feel that pressure that they need to start turning it on, which is not something that you really like. You don't really want a team that is not always ready to go, not always motivated to play, I guess is how I would put it. So how about this, guys? The lowest career opponent's batting average when pitching against the Mets. It goes Sandy Koufax at 170, and then the second best opponent batting average against the Mets, Yu Darvish, 178. What did I say? Yu Darvish is the Mets daddy. It just doesn't make sense. There have been a number of different changes and roster changes to this Mets lineup over the years, and yet Yu Darvish, doesn't matter what year, what uniform, how he's performing earlier that season, always seems to dominate the Mets. So goodbye, Yu Darvish. Thank God we're out of San Diego. That was a terrible week. I hated it. Stanley Babbage, what's up, man? He says, what other trades would Stearns make? I'll get into that in a second. Caden says, how do you think Soto did during this stand? Well, Gregory Soto obviously did not close out that 9th inning, and part of it was his own fault. He gives up a base hit, tries to field the bunt from Iglesias, makes a bad throw to second. He ends up getting the next 2 outs, and then, like I said, another part of this frustrating series against the Padres, a scrub catcher in Diaz. I know he was an all-star a couple years ago, but he's pretty much been a scrub for the last year or two. Has the walk-off base hit with 2 strikes, and then he has another 2-run single yesterday. So Gregory Soto, not the most impressive performance, obviously. He did really well in San Francisco on Sunday in his debut, so that was good to see. And then Juan Soto, obviously, has been slumping lately. He's been slumping lately, and then, of course, fouls the ball off his foot yesterday. He exits that one and then does not play today. Luckily, the results on his x-rays were negative, so they are hoping he will play on Friday. So hopefully Soto will be back in the lineup when the Mets host the Giants for a 3-game set over the weekend. But just a really ugly series for pretty much everybody. And I'm going to get back here to some more trade deadline talk. But really quickly, let me just say this. The big boys need to pick it up. Okay, the Mets Big Four, the Fab Four, as Steve Cohen dubbed them a couple of weeks ago, has been horrific lately. They just haven't. They have been absolutely terrible lately. Francisco Lindor with a brutal series against the Padres, but honestly, just a brutal whole road trip between the series against the Giants and the one here with San Diego. And it's not just this road trip. We know how bad of a stretch it has been for Francisco Lindor. He has been awful. His last 30 games, he is hitting 181 in his last 127 at-bats. Just 4 homers, 17 RBIs. His OBP, 228. Francisco Lindor has just been absolutely killing this team. He has come up with big spots and runners on. He has struck out like last night. Strikes out with the bases loaded and nobody out. It leaves it to Marte, who luckily got the sacrifice fly. We need Francisco Lindor to get back to playing like Francisco Lindor, but it's not just him. It isn't. It's been Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso went over his last 17, over his last 18 or something like that. I think he had 1 hit on this entire road trip between San Francisco and San Diego. Last 7 games for Pete, 111 average. Has that home run, the 3-run shot against the Angels in the final game of the homestand on last Wednesday. That one home run and 4 RBIs. 3 of them come on that one single swing. Outside of that, the last 30 games for Pete, a 185 average for Pete Alonso in his last 108 at-bats. 268 OBP. It's just not good enough. We were begging and screaming for the young guys, for the bottom of this order to finally start producing, to finally start carrying their weight, and they did. You got some great contributions from Brett Beatty over the last 2 weeks. Francisco Alvarez has come back from his minor league, whatever you want to call it, demotion, and has looked much better behind the plate and swinging the bat. You've got the grand slam from Mark Vientos, and he has been hitting much better lately. You've got an emergence from Ronnie Mauricio with the game-tying home run on back-to-back nights, Sunday and Monday. And now it's the big 4. It's the Fab 4 that are killing this team. Both Lindor and Pete Alonso hitting under 200 over the last 30 games. In fact, Lindor, 595 OPS since June 13th. We are talking nearly 2 full months of really bad baseball from Francisco Lindor, and unfortunately adds an error to his name here today that makes it a 4-0 game as Sheets takes Clay Holmes deep on the next pitch. And there we go. How about this, guys? The Mets closing in on acquiring Ryan Helsley from the Cardinals. Okay, so the Mets, seeing that the Phillies go after Johan Duran, the Mets get Rogers earlier in the day, and the Mets punch back with a counter, getting Ryan Helsley from the Cardinals. So it's not official, but according to SNY reports, Mets closing in on acquiring Ryan Helsley from the St. Louis Cardinals. This would be nice. David Stearns is not messing around, guys. David Stearns is going all in on trying to make this a super bullpen. That is really, really great to see. I want to talk about the rest of this Fab 4 and how poorly they've been playing, but I feel like we need to talk about the Mets potentially acquiring Ryan Helsley here. So let me share my screen here with you guys, and then I'm actually going to change the title of our video here. So let's see. Mets acquire Tyler Rogers, Ryan Helsley. Guys, sound off in the chat while I do this. I appreciate you. How do you spell Helsley? Helsley. Guys, I'm trying to do so much here. It's my first post game, or my first deadline here. But I spelled San Diego wrong. God, I'm terrible at this, guys. Sorry. I'm trying. Okay, we're good. Anyway, guys, sound off in the chat. How are you guys feeling about the Mets after getting swept by San Diego? I'm obviously very frustrated, but it's still right there in front of us, right? They just got to pick it back up. They're welcoming in San Francisco now for 3, who I think are better than how they performed against the Mets in San Francisco this past weekend, but we shall see. But let's go to the chat really quick. Let's see. Explosive Diarrhea, what is up, my man? How you doing? Mo Dean, Mets think they have an easy strength of schedule now with the Padres series. They have an intensely hard strength of schedule moving forward. I mean, we'll see. Obviously, the Padres played well against us, and like I said, there are some teams that just seemingly have your team's number, and the Padres have kind of been that team for a while, but the Phillies don't scare me. The Braves scare me. The Mets, it doesn't matter. The Braves are 20 games under 500, and the Braves still seem to find a way to beat the Mets all the time. But the Phillies don't scare me. I know we got the Brewers on the road, so that's going to be a tough one for sure. We already took care of, playing our series with the Dodgers, both home and away. So I'll have to go back and look at the rest of the schedule. But we got a nice little soft spot for these next 6 games. All of these at home. It's going to be 3 with San Francisco and then 3 with Cleveland, who are selling. There's no reason why the Mets shouldn't at least go 5-1 in these next 6 games on this upcoming homestand. So let me go through the rest of this. Let's see. Yeah, Tony looks like just made another move according to Explosive Diarrhea. Very nice. Very nice. The baseball purist, the Mets must end the Holmes experiment. I agree. I would love to see the Mets put Holmes into the bullpen. Having him go out there and basically be a 4 or 5 inning pitcher at this point is just doubly hurting the Mets. I mean, number one, you're not getting any length out of Clay Holmes. You're just stretching him out even further and further, well beyond, and actually double the amount of innings that he has ever thrown in a single season. And he's just basically, it's the law of diminishing returns, right? He is not pitching well as a starter. He's not going deep. And then you're taxing your bullpen, which is making it harder to win the game that he just pitched and making it more difficult for the next day as well on your bullpen. So I am totally in agreement with you there, baseball purist. I would love to see Holmes be put in the bullpen, but it sounds like the Mets are making some moves to beef up their relief corps. So we know they got Tyler Rogers earlier in the day. Whoa, hi there, Jennifer. I didn't mean to click on that. You guys should follow Jennifer, though. She's a really good follow on Twitter. Big Mets fan. Let's see. It is Jesus Baez is a part of the trade for Ryan Helsley, according to Michael Mayer. So that is interesting. Baez, I believe, is the Mets' 7th overall prospect in their system. I could be wrong about that, but let's double check. And then we're going to also take a look at what Helsley has been doing so far for the St. Louis Cardinals here. So Jesus Baez is the Mets, I believe, let's see, their 8th overall prospect. So 20-year-old that is playing with Brooklyn. So obviously many years away from debuting. They say ETA 2027. I think that is probably too early for a 20-year-old. But let's see, Baez was the Mets' biggest international addition in January 2022, $275,000 signing bonus, and he has quickly become one of the most notable prospects of anyone in that class. Interesting. Okay, so far this year for Baez, let's take a look at the numbers here. He has between 2 different levels. He began the season with St. Lucie in A-ball and then was promoted to high A-ball with Brooklyn. So far, a 244 average with Brooklyn, a 334 OBP, so that's nice to see, and a 740 OPS. Not bad for a 20-year-old. I think that's probably right around the age or the average age of that league there. So not bad. 10 home runs, 42 RBIs, 32 walks to 49 Ks. That's really solid as well. So yeah, Baez with some good numbers. He is one of those candidates, though. He's one of those trade chips that I was willing to deal for sure in the right move to improve this team in whatever different category it was, whether it was the relievers or it was acquiring a bat or a starting pitcher. So if Baez is the guy going in this trade, then I am okay with this trade. We'll see if there's anything more going back to St. Louis, but it sounds like the Mets have acquired Ryan Helsley from the St. Louis Cardinals, which is going to just beef up this bullpen. It keeps telling me it's refreshing, but it won't get off of Jennifer's picture. I'm sorry, guys. So this is interesting. According to John Heyman, yeah, they are closing in on a deal to acquire Ryan Helsley. Let me go back to the chat over here, guys. Sorry, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just trying to keep up with everything that's going on Twitter right now. With less than 24 hours from the trade deadline being over, the Mets seemingly have made 2 trades to bolster their bullpen. So really happy about that. Rod says Padres are our kryptonite. 100%, dude. I don't understand why they just look like World Series winners against the Mets this week. That was super annoying. Let's see. Danny Caps retracted it. Michael Sklo, what's up, man? Rogers is better than Buteau. Tidwell stinks and Gilbert is blocked by Benj and Jet. Very good point, Michael, and I meant to say that, but I got a little caught up in all the other crap going on with the Helsley trade, but good point. Buteau has not been very good. He had a really nice little streak there last year, but really has not been very great. Tidwell to me is, again, one of those middling reliever type of arms at best. And then with Drew Gilbert, he is probably blocked by Carson Benj, who is on an absolute tear right now for Double-A. The Mets are probably viewing him as their future center fielder. Plus, the other thing to note about Drew Gilbert, he was Rule 5 draft eligible, meaning that if the Mets did not add him to their 40-man roster after this season ended, he was going to go through the Rule 5 draft. Another team likely would have picked him, so the Mets obviously made a decision here. They don't see him as a part of their future. They believe Carson Bench is going to be that guy, maybe not for another year or two, and that is where I think things are kind of falling into place for the Mets to potentially make a trade for Luis Robert, who has a $20 million option for next year. Not a terrible option if you end up picking it up, if it's only for that 1 year, which it is. So the pieces of the puzzle are kind of starting to come together. It's telling me the Mets are probably going to make that trade for Luis Robert Jr. I don't know who is going to go back to Chicago, but that is what the tea leaves are starting to tell me about this trade deadline and how David Stearns is operating. But very good point from you, Michael Sklo. Baseball Pierre says, Helsley OMG. Danny Cap says, Ryan Helsley, I love this pickup. I do too. Baseball Pierre says, David Stearns, I bow to you on my knees. That's right. We're not worthy. We're not worthy. Let's see. Mark Rapacuccio. I can't do it. I guess he doesn't look at the chat. No, I do. I'm sorry, man. I'm just super busy here trying to talk about the game and also keep up with this, so I apologize. But I go in and out of the chat and everything else that's going on here. Rod says Helsley is a great move, 100%. Mets get Helsley for so here's the final trade. Jesus Baez, Nate Dom, and then I don't know that other guy's name, but let's see. Who is Ellisalt? I have never heard of that guy before in the Mets farm system. Let's see if we could find it. Ellisalt, is that how you spell it? Let's see who this dude is. So we know Nate Dom is a reliever in, I believe it's single A, so he is obviously a little bit away as well from making a big league debut. But guys, like I said, it seems like David Stearns is going to give this team a shot to win the World Series in 2025. So he's willing to trade away the scraps that he doesn't believe are a part of the long-term future. And the Mets just got a lot better today with both of these trades for Helsley and for Tyler Rogers before that. So let's see if we can finally pull this up, guys. Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties, but I want to find Nate Dom's. There he is. So Dom, right-handed pitcher. Yeah, and like I said, he is in high A ball with Brooklyn. He is 22 years old. Pretty decent numbers so far this year. Over 62 and 2/3 innings pitched, has a 2.87 ERA. He's actually a starter, excuse me. I thought he was a reliever, but he was the Mets' 14th overall prospect prior to being traded to the Cardinals for this. So guys, I mean, I love the trade. I think it's a really good trade. I can't even find this Ellisalt dude. I don't even know where he is, where he lands in the Mets, if he even is in their top 30. It doesn't look that way. Otherwise, he'd be coming up here, and he does not. So the Mets are trading Dom, Baez, and Ellisalt to the Cardinals. So let's take a look real quick at Ryan Helsley's numbers and what he has been doing for the Cardinals, as the Mets are trying to build a super pen here, guys. So I am really, really stoked about that. Helsley so far this year, 3-1 with a 3 earned run average, a whip of 1.39. So gonna be honest, those numbers are not as eye-popping as I thought they were gonna be. I know that he's having a solid season here, but I thought they were a little bit better than what we just read off. But let's go to MLB.com and let me pop back to the chat really quick. Mark Beretta, Tony, how are you currently feeling about our team? Well, I was feeling really good about them on that 7-game winning streak, 7-game winning streak until this sweep at the hands of the Padres. So that's not so great, but I think you chalk it up to the Mets stars need to start playing better. They won't go anywhere if Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, and Juan Soto don't start hitting like themselves. So, look, you're going to get swept by teams. The Padres are a good team. They are a perennial playoff team, but this was a frustrating week, and the quickest way to turn it around is to get those 3 guys going, and the sooner that happens, the sooner I'll feel better about the Mets. But this was definitely a very, very ugly series against the Padres, Mark. Danny Caps, we gave up 2 top 15 prospects for Helsley. Love it. Danny Cap says, Garrett, Stanek, Rayleigh, Soto, Rogers, Helsley, Diaz, great bullpen. Okay, so there you go. There's the bullpen right now. So we're looking at Reed Garrett, Ryan Stanek, Brooks Raley, who's pitched very well lately, Gregory Soto, who the Mets acquired, of course, from the Orioles last week, Tyler Rogers, who we just acquired earlier today, who has been money good. I love that he is a submariner as well. It just gives the Mets a different look out of the bullpen, which is really, really crucial in the playoffs with that funky delivery, basically scraping his knuckles on the mound there. Very, shades of Chad Bradford from 2006, if you guys go back that far like I do. So really like the acquisition of him. And then, of course, Helsley and Edwin Diaz. So, yeah, this bullpen looks like it is rounding into form here, guys. It looks like the Mets have done everything they can at this point to improve this bullpen. They don't get the biggest of names in Johan Duran. Of course, he goes to the Phillies, which is very annoying, but I like the way the Mets went about it. It wasn't just a one guy that need for this Mets bullpen. They needed multiple arms, and I think they did a really solid job of piecing it all together. These were three names that I think any contending team made a call about to each of their respective teams and was looking to acquire them. And the Mets came away with three of them in Soto, in Rogers, and in Helsley here. So I really am impressed with how David Stearns went about it. And in the end, the Mets trade away, I think it's 3 of their top 15 prospects. So yeah, it was a little bit of a heavy return on these 3 guys. But overall, I think the Mets did a really solid job of improving this bullpen. And again, I say it was not a one-man type of fix because it never is in a bullpen. But with the injury to AJ Minter and Danny Young and Max Kranick going down and Huascar Brazaban showing his warts and even some of the struggles of Reed Garrett, the Mets had to get a couple different arms. You can't just get Johan Duran and say, the bullpen is fixed. Like, yeah, that's nice to have, but the Mets needed multiple relievers at this deadline, and I am super pleased with how David Stearns went about doing it. He adds 3 guys that, again, I think every contending team probably made a call about, and the Mets come away with all 3 of them. So really stoked about it. Let's go over back to the chat here. Let's see, Stanley Babbage, will the Mets address their center field issue or stay with Taylor and McNeil? Like I said, the Mets trading Drew Gilbert tells me that they view Carson Bench as the future center fielder of this team, maybe next year, midway through the season, or in 2027. And it tells me that the Mets are going to try and acquire Luis Robert Jr. It really does. That's just how the puzzle pieces are all coming together here at this deadline. With the Mets trading Gilbert, a guy that was Rule 5 eligible anyway, they clearly didn't believe in him as their future center fielder, not even as a stopgap guy until Carson Bench would eventually come up and win the job. It tells me that David Stearns is still on the phone with Chicago and is looking to acquire Luis Robert Jr. or potentially with Baltimore for Cedric Mullins. I personally would probably go more the route of Luis Robert Jr. I think there's more upside there. I think at $20 million next year, yes, expensive, but for just that 1 year, while Carson Bench gets a little more time down in the minors, not a bad, risk to have it be Luis Robert Jr., who is a 2023 All-Star and at one time was showing 5-tool potential. So that is how I think it's going to go down there. I do think the Mets are still going to be trying to acquire Luis Robert Jr. or potentially Cedric Mullins to fix center field. So let's go back to Helsley here. So far in 36 games this season, over 36 innings, he has 21 saves and an ERA of exactly 3. The whip is a little bit higher than you like to see, but lately has been pretty solid. Just 1 earned run in his last 7 appearances, so really good there. He has a 1.29 ERA during that time as well, so just getting better and better. Let's actually take a look real quick at Helsley's I think it's Helsley is how you say it. Helsley, right? Yeah, Ryan Helsley. Let's take a look at his Baseball Savant page, and then let me go back to the chat real quick. You guys can take a look at it here while I respond to you all. Thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate it. I know it was a long week without me. I know you miss me. I get it. But we're back here in the studio, and happy to be back, and obviously no more West Coast trips. So post-game recaps after every single Mets game here and daily Mets content. Be sure to subscribe if you are not already, and leave this video a like. Do it right now if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. Did you guys see Happy Gilmore 2? I have not yet watched it. I'm waiting to do that. I have not heard such great things, but I'm going to go into it with an open mind and we'll just see. But let me go to the chat really quick. Let's see. Stanley Babbage asked about center field. Rod Stern saw what the Durant trade and immediately locked in. You know, it's like that meme. It's like when you're playing video games and you're laying back and then you start losing and you have to sit forward. That's literally David Stearns after he saw that the Phillies acquired Johan Durant. So he makes the trade for Tyler Rogers earlier in the day before the Mets game, and then of course comes back and gets Helsley as well. And yeah, this Mets bullpen is looking a lot more solid than it did 24 hours ago. So I am very, very happy with the trades that David Stearns just made here. Let's see. Rod says now the Rogers trade is looking not bad with the Helsley trade. Yeah, exactly, man. Like I said, Jesus Baez, 20-year-old shortstop, third baseman down in High A, Brooklyn, years away from debuting. You know, trading from a position of surplus in terms of not only the big league roster but also the minor league farm system as well. So I have no problem with trading Jesus Baez, despite, you know, him being the 8th overall prospect in this system. I felt that way about Drew Gilbert. I was a little frustrated at first, and then of course, like I've laid out here, thought about it more with Carson Benj maybe a year and a half away, or maybe even this time last year trying to take over center field for this team. I have no problem with trading Drew Gilbert, who's again Rule 5 eligible as well. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how David Stearns has put this bullpen together. But Helsley's been really solid. Breaking run value, 95th percentile. His fastball velo, he gets it up to 99.3. That's in the 99th percentile. So that is obviously nice to see. His chase percentage is in the 94th percentile, and his whiff percentage is in the 86th percentile. He's a slider pitcher. He throws it 48% of the time. His four-seamer 45% of the time. And then he has a curve and a cutter that he mixes in a combined just 7% of the time. But this is awesome to see. This is really, really nice because there have been so many years in the past when the Mets are contending and looking to make a run in October and a potential World Series team where they just kind of do the bare minimum. They don't go over the top to try to improve specifically the bullpen, but this year they did it. You remember in 2022 when we needed bullpen help and the Mets only traded for Michael Givens, right? That was a terrible trade. Of course, on the roster side, they go for Darren Ruff and Tyler Naquin. Wow, that was great. But really, I think Stearns has had this year and a half to understand all the different prospects in this system that were picked by so many different GMs that preceded him and decided who's a part of the future and who is not. And now he is making moves that is hopefully going to give the Mets a chance to win a World Series here in 2025 without mortgaging the future of this organization either. So real quick though, I do want to see Helsley, how much time he has left. I believe he's a rental, but I could be wrong about that. Let's see. He is 31 years old, and I believe he is going to be a free agent at the end of the year. He will. So both Tyler Rogers and Ryan Helsley will be free agents at the end of this